Okay, today we're going to talk about making books tactile. And so, something that makes it a little easier when you're making the book is if you have like a purpose for the book. For example, this one, my purpose was we were just really exploring textures. It was a book that the student liked to listen to. And so I was trying to get the student to feel different textures, tolerate feeling different textures, you might say. So, and then also if I'm making a book, if I can give it more than one purpose, it makes it a little easier for me. So I tried to keep the colors as close as possible, because if I had a blind student, they might not see the colors, but my other students might. Plus you'll also notice a lot of times it just makes it a nicer book just to have something. So we have the brown bear, and then we have the feathers. I forgot what I was going to say. When you're getting fur cloths, sometimes that can be really expensive. But what I have done before is if you go to a thrift store and you see like a bear, or if your child has a bear that's just kind of old and it's, you can always cut it up and then you can get fur that way. So you don't have to pay a lot for the cloth. Then I have feathers. I think I bought these at Walmart in a bag. They came together, and it was a mixture of feathers because I also needed yellow. Then I had some blue cloth. This is not really the best cloth because it kind of comes off, but I have had this book for quite a while and it's kind of hung in there. So yeah, as you can tell, I've had the books got little places in it. But this I put to make it feel like bumps, to get a different texture for the frog. I had hot glue and put little dots of the hot glue and then put the foam over it. I let that dry and then put the foam over it. Then we have the purple cat. Then we have the white dog, the black sheep. These are just individual sequins that I glued on to give it more of a scales for a fish look, and also to make it shiny. Kids love shiny things. And this is a pipe cleaner. So this book was just, really the purpose was just to explore textures. So then let's see. Then this one was really, this one was kind of more about movement and just a fun book. This was a student's favorite book, and I was just trying to make it tactile. So it doesn't have as much of a purpose as some of the others, but you'll see as we go through it. You can tell it was the favorite book because it's a little beat up here. It's about to fall apart. So for round and round, the wheels turn. They're kind of attached to each other on the page, as you can see, and they turn. Then we have, these are zip ties that I put a brad through, and then that way they move back and forth and back and forth like windshield wipers. Then when we would sing the song, we would always move our hand to say move it on back, and so I put a hand on here so you can move it back, move on back. This is up and down. So I wanted something that would go up and down, so I put a piece of string, and these are just some beads that go on it. Okay, then this one, I was wanting the student to push it in. We're really kind of fine motor things what we're working on here, but it also reminds you of a horn. Beep, beep, beep on your car as you're pushing it in. And then I would just make the noise for beep, beep, beep. And then for the baby, I just use the rattle, so you could shake the rattle. And then for the parents, an X for shh. And then again, here's our wheel, and it goes round and round. And I think poking the holes in the pages of this book was probably the hardest part about making this book. Then let's see, the next one is, this is where you can make your own books. I'll cover my name here. But it says, what does it feel like describing objects in the bathroom? So we're working on describing words. And so this one is made out of cardstock that I laminated, and then I put things on it that you would find in the bathroom that have different textures, and that you could use, so we could describe them and feel them. It does have Braille in it, and the student was not learning Braille, but it was more for exposure. So the first page had a little sample. As you tell, it's an old book. I think it was the first one I ever made. That was Tactile. But it had a little sample, like a makeup sample, and it was kind of slick, felt kind of slippery, you know. Um, and so that's what was there, and it got pulled off a long time ago. I think one of my students wanted to try to put the makeup on. Then we have a towel, and this is just a little piece of, I'm sure it was probably a piece of an older towel or something, and I cut it. Then this is a emery board, so it's rough, or a nail file. It would really be an emery board, but you know. Then we have the toothbrush, which always comes off. And I have a cotton ball. It used to be a cotton ball. Now it's kind of a little sad piece of partial cotton ball for Fluffy. Then spongy, and this is quite old, and so the sponge is not really soft anymore. It's kind of gotten hard over the years. And then we have a robe. This was actually, I think, it has like a wire that runs through it, but it just kind of felt kind of soft and, you know, snuggly to me. Then gooey, this was it was a Ziploc bag with gel in it, but that did not work too well because my students like to take that out to get the gel out. So I would not suggest that for your book. And then this was like a makeup sponge. Actually, I think mine was just a piece of sponge, but it was to be squishy like a makeup sponge. And I was kind of work on sharp. And that's kind of hard to do because you don't want students with visual impairments to be poking things that are hard. But this is kind of sharp on the end, but it's not sharp enough that it's really going to hurt you too much. So that's why I used it. And plus you would find it in the bathroom. And then I had stretchy. So the purpose of this book, as I said, a lot of times if you have a purpose when you make the book, the purpose of this book was to work on, describing, wasn't going to put my name on there, describing words. Then we have one where I was working on shapes. So this was just a book. The board books are really good for this because they hold up if you can find one that, you know, relates to what you're wanting to work on. This one is shapes, so we have a circle and string. I used the string to make the shapes because it was a lot easier. You could use wiki sticks if you have those. And if you're not sure what those are, I will show you in a later video. How about that? And then we have squares, and I just use things that, yes, some of these are kind of cubes, but, you know, they kind of remind you of squares. They have the square shape. They're 3D squares. And then we have triangles, we have rectangles, we have ovals, we have diamonds, and we have the heart shape. And then after that, a lot of times if you have a book like this book, then this book goes into tall and short and long, and that wasn't really what I was working on. I was working on shapes. I didn't want to work on those, so I just glued these pages together. So that way, if somebody was reading it, or if my student took it home to read and the parents were reading it, they would know not to read those pages. So I do that quite often with a book. Then let's see what we have next. Oh, well, I have two different versions of a book like this. I will show them both and show you what sometimes a bad idea is. So this one my idea was to work on position words, and my student was unable to see, and so I used the board book because it would hold up, and it was easy, to be honest. But then the only problem is, you'll see as I open the book, that I couldn't really use it with other students because it was really confusing. So what I should have done was covered all this up. So, and then wrote over it, and now I just keep it as a sample of what not to do. But, so if you look at the pages, and I did glue some of the pages together because it was just too many pages. But like here, the heart is above the string. And see, there's no words here. So I knew what I was trying to say, but would anybody else that was trying to read it? And then the heart is below. Then we do the heart is above. It's on top of, above. And then we have the hearts below or under. Then we have the hearts between. And then we have, you could do right and left. Oh, oops, where is it? Right and left. And then you could do outside. And then you could just do among if you wanted. But, so again, it's really helpful if you have, I mean, it's nice to have a board book because you can just glue little things on there like that, but you might want to cover it up or paint it or do something. So here I did the same kind of book, but I made this one. I had some thin cardboard. I haven't actually attached it. So I was making this as part of my visual impairment class when I went back, as I was going back to school, and my professor informed me that I probably needed to change the green because it was not really, it didn't really stand out enough. But, so again, you get things right, you get some things wrong. But I had painted it black because my student had CVI, and so I thought the bright colors on the black background would make you be able to see it better. So, and again, the button is over the string. The button is between the strings. The button is under the string. The button's on top of the string. And the button is underneath the string. So, and then I would have just normally attach it with the little rings, like 3 little rings to hold it together. But I haven't decided if I'm going to fix it or not. The buttons came from Walmart. I think they were about 98 cents for about 6 maybe. And I already had the string, and I already had the cardboard, and I already had the black paint. So, okay, now let's see what else I have. I do have some books that sometimes if you kind of think outside the box a little bit, I think I started this one with a counting one. These are those Cheerios books, but of course I didn't want to have Cheerios in a bag to use over and over and over again. So, and then my student wasn't able to eat either, so they were on a feeding tube, so Cheerios was, it's kind of mean. But so what I did is I took it to a hardware store, and I found the right size little, I think these are washers that would fit in the holes. And so then I glued all the others on. One has come off, but I glued all the others on, and then the student would put them in the holes. And so I had a box that I kept with it. And then here we are. And then here we are. So we used it sometimes for counting. How many bubbles is there? And then he filled in the spots. And then again, you could count, or you could count by 3s. Here's a pattern. Can you fill in all the red squares if you're working on colors? And then here you have the eyes. You have to fill in the eyes. And you can count by 2s for that one if you want. But this one comes in quite a few versions. There's also a Christmas version. And so it has Christmas pictures in it. I'll just kind of flip through it really quick so you can see it. The same, you'll see it's the same kind of basic idea. It's just Christmas pictures instead of the regular plain pictures. And then they have the Halloween version. And so you really just need, I think if I remember correctly, they all use about the same number, or pretty close to the same number of so you just have that one box and you can use it with all of them. Okay, so that's those, and let's see what we have next. Okay, this was not so good of a book, but it again was one of my students' favorite books, and I was trying to find a way to modify it, and so it was one of my first ones, and I don't know that I did the best job. So, but let's see, and I did use an adapted book from somebody else had created. But so what I did is I had some objects. We ended up using it more for vocabulary than we did for anything. So I had a cookie, and I can't find it in my box, but I had a cookie that would go with it here. And then I had a cup, a little plastic cup that is for a glass of milk. And then I have a little bottle. The milk, it looked like this one. The first one came off, but the back one is in the back. See the little milk container? So a straw. We have a straw. We have a napkin. I try to use real objects if possible, since I teach students who have difficulties. They learn better with objects. And then this mirror, I always read this book with my students, so it is actual a mirror. You can hear when I tap on it. But if I was making this for my students to read for themselves, which they did with a lot of the other books, I would not have used a real mirror. But then I had some scissors, and I had it's a little broom, so you can sweep. And you could make this if you don't have a little broom. Actually, I think I made the mop. Let's see. Yes, as you can see, I had a little piece of plastic. I'm not sure what that was, and I just tied some yarn around it and made a little mop. And then there's my little bucket. Then this is just it's actually a baby washcloth folded up for the blanket. And then this was supposed to be the you know, where he kind of, I think, make himself comfortable. I was like, I couldn't really remember the story, but you know, it's kind of like a little bed where you would make yourself comfortable. And all I did was cut off the bottom of a cup, and this is just a piece of cloth. We like the. Then this is a book. This is just some cardstock, and I think it's actually maybe 2 different colors of cardstock, or this maybe was an index card that's colored or something. And I just kind of cut it in the shape of a book and gave it some pages so it would seem like a book. Here's the crayons and a piece of paper. This is a drawing. Then I think the next one, oh no, this one says finished, and we always had an X for the finished symbol, and you can kind of tell I cut out that X. The next one talks about drawing the name, so it's my student's name, so I'll flip that page. But and I did it with puff paint. And then we have a pen, and then I think I actually did have the thing of Scotch tape, but it just really didn't fit in here, so I would put it in the bucket when I read it. And then these are just my little eyes. They were kind of fun. So this one is not really as good for like teaching. It was more really just for fun, and we did work on some vocabulary words, maybe like mop and broom and stuff like that. But or napkin, straw. But it's really not the best example of a book. So put a lot of work into it, but it's really not the best. A better book, for the student's sake, would be a book like this, which is called an experience book. We used to go bowling, and so when we would go bowling, this was our experience book to remember the experience of bowling. And this little bowling pin, I think, came from Walmart in the little section where you buy like the party toys. And then we had the ball. Normally, if I was doing an experience book, I might not necessarily put the pins because the student's not going to feel the pins, so it doesn't really have a lot of purpose to them. But in our case, we would practice bowling a lot in the gym, and so they actually did feel the pins because they would set them up. Okay? So the book says, I put on shoes. That's what you do when we go. Then it helps them remember, oh yeah, I remember when I put on my shoes. And then I held the bar, because that's a big part of it, is holding that little bar when they go up to throw the ball. And this is just a little straw, I think, from like a Capri Sun cup, stuck down on some Velcro to make it kind of feel like that bar. And I rolled the ball. And this is just one of those little round wooden, I don't know what they're used for, but they have like a flat side on one of them. You can get them at hardware stores even. And then pins fell down. There's another little bowling pin. And then I ate pizza. So it has a fork for eating, because that was always our symbol for eating. If you have a different one, if you use a spoon, if your child uses a spoon, you could, but we always used a fork. So I try to use the same ones over and over. Then, if you're wanting to make a book tactile, this is the last one I think I have. If you're wanting to make a book tactile, but the pieces don't really kind of fit in it or that kind of stuff, and you just kind of want to give them something to feel as you're reading the book, this one is the Very Hungry Caterpillar. So instead of attaching the things to the book, then I had them so that we could fill them. So for example, it says, on the light of the moon, a little egg lay on a leaf. So here's our leaf. It kind of feels like a leaf. And we did have another one, and it does not feel so much like a leaf. We had them both though. And then I did have an egg, but it is not in my bucket here. It does not appear. So, and that was the egg. Then we get to the fruits here. So we would talk about the fruits, and we have like an apple and a pear and a strawberry. And here's our orange. And then let's see what's on the next page. And then you get to these foods. And we have see if I can find what I still have left in my bucket here. We have a cupcake here. And these were actually, I think, little hot dogs, and I used them for the sausage. And the salami and the sausage. And then we have a watermelon. And then we have a piece of cheese. And we have a pie. Oh, and there's our pickle. So again, we were talking about here, we were talking as much about this part. You could do counting if you wanted, but here we were really discussing the different kinds of foods and fruits. So we would name them. We could name them when we go to the cafeteria. So we could ask for what we wanted, because we would sometimes be given different kinds of fruit. And then here's your leaf again. So again, it just depends on what your purpose is for the book. And granted, these don't all look exactly. I mean, it would probably be a little better if I got some that were a little more. And I do have some that that were a little more realistic looking, but they're a lot bigger, so I don't really have them in this bag. But I think that is it for now. And if I find any others I have made over the years, I will make another video.